what's up guys? I'm back with another video and I'm here today with my good friend Eleanor.
Hi guys.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Eleanor Kingston. I make music. I also watch the Vampire Diaries avidly, so I'm here.
Okay, so for today's video, what I'm going to do is show Eleanor a video of Kat Graham being blatantly disrespected by Julie Plec, the writer of TVD, and one of the producers, Caroline Dries. So either I'll share my screen and I'll play the video that way, or if that doesn't work, then I'll send the link to Eleanor and she can share it on her screen. I have some pretty specific time codes that I want us to watch, and I want to stop after every time code and after every clip so that way we can talk about it and react to it. So let's get started.
Really cool, and then we have a Teen Choice nom, so it's really nice that people are appreciating the work that Ian and I do together and are seeing that and recognizing that. It really means a lot.
Is that something that you would ever consider doing?
It's so, their friendship on the show is so powerful.
It's just so fun. I don't know, I'm feeling like Damon is still madly in love with Elena. Bonnie's gonna maybe have her own love interest this year, and
It's not gonna be Damon, so.
So the rudeness of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that they were all uncomfortable. Like the other actors were really uncomfortable as well. Like, I don't understand why the producers are so mad about someone else's off-screen life.
Right.
Like relating to the show. I think that's completely separate from the show. Especially because a lot of the actors on the show dated outside of the screen, and it wasn't necessarily when their characters were together either. So it shouldn't matter, but that's disturbing.
Yeah, Caroline Dries, I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably gonna sound like a fake fan, but I've never heard of her up until just now, or just until I watched that video. And immediately I was like, bad first impression.
No, I put a lot of work, I busted my ass on that show, and had a lot of great epiphanies that came from it. And it wasn't until I got into Hollywood where I started to pay attention to the way characters were written and the way certain people were promoted or not even getting a chance to read for certain things, and I'd be like, what's that about? And then it wasn't until Vampire Diaries I had to really it was really brought to my attention how people were reacting to certain things.
What's a couple that never happened that you guys would think would be really funny for your characters? Lark and Bonnie?
Yeah, and
just gonna work your way through all of
Alana Elena.
You and Elena and Bonnie?
Yeah, threesome.
Wait, I have to go back to this part. This guy's a writer?
No, Alaric.
He looks so different there. What the hell, a threesome?
Yup. I already didn't like Rick. I mean, you didn't watch the season, but him and Caroline got together. Yeah. And I was like, that makes me so uncomfortable. I didn't like that at all. That was so creepy to me.
Yeah, it's interesting how the writers, I think that was another part of why I stopped watching it, was kind of just trying to put whoever together at that point to keep it interesting.
Right.
When to me, that wasn't why I watched the show necessarily. Obviously the love interests were a huge part of the show, but it wasn't the whole piece of it. There was so many other forms of relationships that went on in the course of the show that were a lot more intriguing to me than just throwing whoever together romantically.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, when I forgot what his real name was, Matthew Davis, he just gives me creepy vibes. And especially watching him say that about Bonnie and Elena, I was like, no,
that should not be allowed. I think what's interesting is that he gets to say that as a man and have no repercussion.
Yeah, exactly.
The minute that Kat says something about a relationship or something being shipped off camera, the producer steps in and shuts it down right away.
That's the thing, and that's why I'm like, it's not fair, because they're not letting her talk. They're not letting her say anything. And whenever she tries to talk about her and Damon, even if it's subtle and even if it's just oh yeah, the fans want us, just talking about the fans, the producer steps in and she's like, well, that's never gonna happen because Bonnie has a new love interest. There's another timestamp. What is it? 2:43 to 3:18.
It's still how Stella got her groove back.
How Bonnie got her
magic back.
I mean, if she's trying to get her magic back, she's trying to kill me. Literally left me in a Jeep alone by myself. That's not trying to get a groove back at all.
That was a great shot.
Bonnie didn't lose her groove. She just lost her magic. She still got a groove.
Yeah.
Okay.
We actually made a commitment to the beginning of the season to get as far into the season as humanly possible without having to rely on anything magical like a locator spell.
To get my power
Magic became such a crutch.
one day.
Hypothetically,
I love it. I love her as a witch.
Julie's face, she just seems annoyed every single time Kat starts talking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Because the whole point was that she wanted like her character to transform into a witch, basically. And then she says that the whole like that they really want the show to continue without that. Like she makes a point of saying that, which I think is really interesting. And then I think it's interesting that Kat keeps talking about it, because then there's obviously some sort of dynamic there that was pre-existing before the interview. Yeah,
Kat has a point. Because throughout this entire video, there are clips where she keeps talking about the fact that she's always dying, or the fact that she's always like villainized. In season 7, she took the form of a vampire hunter. And I'm like, why?
It's
like,
super out of character.
And the entire time she was calling Caroline, she was calling the people that she marked and the people that she loves and being like, hey, hurry up and get away from me. I'm gaining on you.
Right.
Well, obviously, the real Bonnie was still in there. She just had no control of her body. But by her trying to kill the people that she loves and by her trying to dagger them, it's like, oh, Bonnie's his villain. When in reality, it's like, no, Bonnie's Bonnie.
Right, exactly. It's like they're changing the whole theme of the show in the middle of the season, you know?
Right. Timestamp 5 to 5:28.
We've had an interesting relationship over the years. How will that evolve in season 7?
I mean, it's definitely evolved after their time in the 90s together.
They're besties now, and if
They're
she's
besties, and also Bonnie, the reason Bonnie's alive is because Elena's in a coma, and vice versa.
Right.
So there's probably a little bit of subconscious resentment going on from
there's
Damon.
some stuff
You guys
on
have
both
to work out.
sides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's some resentment, I think, on both sides.
The pettiness is just getting worse and worse for
Yeah.
both Julie and Caroline. There is a clip that talks about, or at least the captions talk about it, and I think somebody in the comments said that it was in an interview beforehand with Ian Somerhalder. But Julie actually threatened to kill Bonnie off for good. She wanted to fire Kat Graham after the 3rd season. And Ian, just because Ian was like, no, like he took a stand and he was like, okay, you know what? If you fire Kat Graham, that's fine, but I'm leaving too. And that's the only reason why they kept Bonnie around.
Wow. Why did he say that? Just because they were great friends?
Yeah. And the other actors too. The other actors loved Kat Graham.
Yeah, no, I mean, they seem uncomfortable when all of the issues with the producers
Yeah.
and writers, like you can see it in their faces that they're uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. I mean, it seems like deeper than just being upset about her talking about a relationship. It seems more just like they don't want her to have any say in her character or any type of rewrite or anything to what Bonnie stands for. And then because they're so aggressively angry at her, they make her character even worse or go into a completely opposite direction than what she always wanted.
And I don't know if you remember the previous clip, but there was a clip where she talks about pitching female witches. Like, I don't necessarily know the context of the interview that was in, but from my understanding, it seems like she was pitching a girlfriend for Bonnie, and the producers immediately shut that down. And it's like, why would they shut that down? Because later on in season 7, there was a whole entire, like for half the season, there was an LGBTQ couple.
They were shutting it down, saying like, oh, we already have someone, like that's never gonna happen. I mean, it seems like they always kind of wanted to keep her on the bench, but she was always floating between like a minor and a major character, which was super strange. It's like giving her like a piece of hope of being like a huge character that will never die off, and also just not being cared about at all.
So there's 2 more.
It depends on what project. I mean, there have been days on set where I'm like,
who the fuck wrote this? This is garbage.
So I.
When you're reading these scripts, are you ever like, crap, is this the last time?
No, because they usually kind of, like, they've called me and said, okay, we're killing you, but you're only be going for a commercial break, or we're killing you and we're sending you off. So I kind of already know what's happening, but it still makes it like, okay, thanks for telling me.
Why do you feel like they mess with her life more than anybody else's then? Because nobody else.
I don't know, maybe they just want to kill me off the show.
No, because if they wanted to kill you off, you'd be gone. They've had a million chances, but you're always back. Which
they might have a fan backlash, but I don't know. I think they probably just want to kill.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear that like there's some underlying issues, obviously like very apparent with the writers, especially because it keeps coming up. But what's interesting is that she knows that the only reason she stayed on the show is because fans love her character. So obviously it's not a character issue that the writers are having a problem with. It's more like her as an actor and as a person, which makes it even worse. Like you can't run your cast like that, and you can't, work in a job as a writer and then like not focus on what's going to tell the proper storyline of the show, but more focus on like your petty arguments off camera.
I'm trying to be a writer in Hollywood, you know? And I just can't imagine being a writer who doesn't effectively communicate with the cast. Like if somebody from the cast comes up to me, especially like one of the leads or just in general, even if it was an extra, if somebody came up to me and pitched an idea, I would at least take it into consideration. I wouldn't just be like, oh no, that's stupid, or that's never going to happen, or I don't see that happening for you, you know?
Yeah, like respecting someone else's opinions, especially because the actors, it's not necessarily like trying to do the writer's job. It's just that the actors are the embodiment of the character. And I'm sure after all of those years filming, they start to feel like the character and they start to have more of a understanding of what the character would go through. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, taking advice from, you know, I'm sure they would take advice from Ian Somerhalder if he had an idea about his character. So Absolutely. It's just weird that they don't have the same respect. I mean, like you said, it's as simple as taking a meeting or just respectfully saying that's not where we see the show going and why, and not making like snarky comments at interviews. Exactly. That's just not a way to do your job.
And I just feel so bad for Kat Graham because in those interviews, you can tell that she felt uncomfortable. And you can tell that like whenever she got interrupted, she would have a lot to say, but she just never had the chance to. And she was not even just that she never had the chance to, but she was too scared. And I think that's the problem about having those types of jobs. You have somebody that you have to respect, even if you're not getting that same respect back, because it's like you can get blacklisted or blackballed or whatever. And Caroline Dries and Julie Plec were so well respected at the time that nobody would have known what was going on behind the scenes, you know? So if Kat were to do something like quit or speak her mind and they fired her, they could easily be like, yeah, well, Kat was a difficult person to work with. When in reality, that's not the situation. But who would they believe, you know?
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I was thinking like, why wouldn't she just quit? Because obviously Elena wasn't in the season because Nina Dobrev quit. And so it's kind of interesting to think about like, oh, why didn't you quit? And obviously, yeah, like being blackballed in the industry is a huge piece of it probably because the industry is small, no matter like what you're in entertainment, it's really small and everyone knows each other and of each other. So like having those issues, especially when you kind of work under someone, can be really, really tough. And obviously like it's unfortunate that she felt like she had to stay in that position because it would have been better probably if she did quit because the show would have tanked. You know, if you had Nina Dobrev and Kat Graham quit, like the show would have flopped. And Absolutely. I think we knew that.
One thing that I really hate is when Bonnie was in the prison world and she had that moment of wanting to commit suicide. I was like, that's not a Bonnie thing to do. That just felt so out of character for her and that kind of caught me off guard.
That was really painful to watch because it was, yeah, like out of character and also just, you know, if she did ever die, I don't think it would have been at her own like free will because she spent the whole show being so strong and like looking after her friends and saving everyone around her that I don't think if it was her time, it would have been self-inflicted because they've already proven that she's so strong.
And she's like an independent, self-sufficient person. It says, Bonnie's fiercest, loudest supporters were the Black women who were also forced to grapple with both a deep love of the series and a constant frustration with how Bonnie had been sidelined. For these fans, there was an unspoken duty to protect the show's only Black lead, who would never receive the same amount of appreciation within the fandom as Caroline or Elena. And then when the Vampire Diaries premiered in September 2009, it was the only genre show on the CW to feature a Black woman in its main cast. So for that small group of us who already felt like outsiders within genre fandom because of what little representation there was, Bonnie meant the whole damn world. And this show did her so dirty.
It's not only that they did her dirty, like her on-screen character, like it was just like as an actor and as a woman, like she wasn't respected, but she was still there, like standing her ground and trying to be like the strongest person that she could be and the strongest character that she could be. Because obviously, like as an actor, you fall in love with your character and you fall in love with the story. And like, it's hard to leave, even if you have that opportunity. Like, obviously, it's a hard goodbye. So, yeah, I mean, I found another article and one of the lines says, to center Bonnie Bennett means to center the pain of being Black in a society meant to use your pain for the service of the greater good.
It's so true. And I love how all this stuff is coming out now.
Yeah, I think I'm reading it, and it's a lot of it is because of the pandemic too. Like people have been looking for stuff to binge watch, and like we all got a lot older, you know, like I feel like the Vampire Diaries crowd that were teenagers or young teenagers when it was a really big show are now like in their 20s or young adults. And so analyzing it as a show after like all of the growth you do in your teenage years, it becomes a lot easier. I love your TikTok series. You're killing it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And go check Eleanor out, Eleanor Kingston, on all social media platforms. Thank you so much, Eleanor.
Thank you.